sure would have liked to taste that little risotto there. Jesus. Okay, our next session. This is a new book. It is one book. The author of this book is the former chef of Heston Blumenthal, Fat Duck. This is the very first presentation in Europe. It was presented in the States a few days ago. Here is Chris Young with Modernist Cuisine.
Thank you. Afternoon, everyone. So I'm told I only have about 15 minutes, and it's going to be a little difficult to show you the entire book in 15 minutes, but I thought I'd try to give you a sampling of what this is all about and what myself and my two co-authors, Nathan Miravold and Maxime Billet, have been doing for the last nearly 5 years. So I'm going to quickly get some of the statistics out of the way. It's 5 volumes, plus a 350-page waterproof kitchen manual. The pages are actually washable. It has all of the example recipes, reference tables that are in these books, and that spiral-bound notebook. It's partly this large. It's 2,438 pages. Part of the reason it's that large is it has over 3,200 photographs in it. We wanted it to be very visual to make the topic more accessible. It is a cookbook. It has over 1,500 recipes, many of them inspired by chefs here today. But it's also got a lot of text, over 1 million words, which, if you were to put all those words end to end, it's almost 11 kilometers of text. It took a little while to proofread that. It weighs almost 20 kilograms. If you drop this on your foot, it is going to seriously hurt. Here's one of my favorite statistics. It has almost 2 kilograms of ink in it from all of the photographs, which, in fact, when we asked the printer what that was going to do, they told us it would expand the width of the books by almost a centimeter. All of that ink adds up. So it's a very difficult book to describe. It's got a lot of different things going on, some of which I'll show you. So probably the best way to describe it is it's an encyclopedic treatment of cooking. Even though it's called Modernist Cuisine, it really is more than just that. So we cover traditional cooking because we felt to really explain modernist cuisine, we needed to have an understanding of how traditional cooking actually works. It also covers sous vide cooking extensively because there's a lot of confusion around how to best apply that. In fact, the book started out as just a book on sous vide cooking, but we got carried away, and after adding traditional cooking and sous vide, we thought we should talk about things like modern ovens like Rational combi ovens, CVAPs, but also a lot of the exotic technology that's been finding its way into kitchens everywhere. But we wanted to explain this in a clear and accessible way to chefs so they understand how to use this to get the best results possible. So again, we did that with a lot of photography. Certainly we covered unfamiliar ingredients, things like emulsifiers, gelling agents, foaming agents, but wanted to make them very familiar and accessible to understand where do these things come from, how are they used, what are there any concerns surrounding them. But we also felt we should look at familiar ingredients, but look at them in ways we haven't seen them before. So one of the ways we do that is by using high-powered microscopy to look at food. That's potato starch, for example, to really look into the food and see the beautiful natural structures and ingredients that we use every day as chefs. So, of course, we have step-by-step photos of hundreds of techniques. This is just a quick sampling of some of the pages. I can't possibly show you them all, so I'll just show you a lot quickly. Now, some of these techniques we developed at our cooking lab, but many of them are actually pioneered by chefs such as Heston Blumenthal, Ferran Adria. And as a cook, you would have had to work in literally hundreds of restaurants to have learned many of these techniques. In a sense, this is the book that I wish I'd had over 10 years ago when I started to learn this stuff. These are just some of the chefs that were involved in this book or provided recipes that we either took adaptations from or were inspired to create something from. So there were about 100 chefs. But we also wanted to explain the hows and the whys, the science behind these techniques, because we think really understanding the hows and whys allows you to innovate and go much deeper into cooking and come up with new techniques, new recipes that have never existed before. And I think that's one of the things that's most exciting about this kind of cuisine is devising things that the world has never seen. And again, we tried to do this in a very visual, compelling way. So just to choose one example, there we go. This is our grilling cutaway. There's a lot going on here. I don't know how, can people see the screen very well with these lights up this high? Can we take the lights down?
Which country is the caviar from? From Italy.
Is that better?
Close to Brescia.
Okay. So just to choose one of the points that we're explaining here, this is actually on where the flavor of grilled food comes from. A lot of people believe the coals are the responsible for the grilled flavor, but in fact, it's not the coals, it's the flare-ups of fats. This is a high-speed photography of fat dripping off hamburger patties, in fact, onto a charcoal. We're shooting at over 5,000 frames per second, but you can see the fat, it boils on the coals, it evaporates, and then in those flames, you're forging new flavors that are carried by the air currents up onto the food and impart that really special flavor of grilled food. So this is one of the things where we really wanted to take a look at exactly what's going on. So you might ask how we did this. We've seen some of this photography earlier today. We actually did it, it's our high-speed camera. It's called the Phantom V12, and we can shoot up to 1 million frames per second to see things on time scales that normally you can't observe in the kitchen, to really try to see what's happening. And once you get one of these cameras, you kind of get carried away. So I'll just show a few more, some footage we created. So this is popcorn, actually, in oil. And as the water boils to steam and expands, it just can't be held back until, there it goes. Now, for my next little film here, I certainly never thought you'd see 2 of these in one day, but here's us in our orange peel aromas being volatilized. It's actually something we garnish a drink with. If you happen to get your hands on one of these cameras, eventually somebody is going to get the idea to do this. This is Ballistic Gelatin. The recipe is actually in the book for this gelatin, and that was a NATO 308 rifle round. This all takes place in maybe 1/100th of a second in real life. So why do this? Well, certainly it was fun, but we think really understanding what's going on inside cooking, the hows and whys, they can inspire you to create dishes that have never existed before, help you create dishes that evoke profound and deep emotions in the guests. And for me, I think that's the real point of this kind of cooking, is being able to evoke these emotional feelings. But to create dishes to do that require you to really have a deep intuition for what's going on and how to accomplish your artistic vision. So this is a traditional pork roast, and it inspired this dish that we did. Now, this might look like something a caveman would make, but in fact, everything in this photo is edible. The ashes taste like pain d'épices. The coals there, in fact, they're actually made from confit prunes that we then encase in braising juices that are thickened with a little isomalt, and we foam them in a vacuum chamber until the bubbles sort of expand out. Now, even if that's not the kind of thing you want to cook, understanding that same aspect of how do you foam and how do you crisp things can be really useful for engineering a really crispy crust on a pork. We actually take the pork skin, dehydrate it, create a crackling that we penne the pork loin with, and when you deep fry it, it puffs up and makes this incredibly crispy skin. And I think most people can appreciate that, even if you don't want to use some of the modernist ingredients and technologies. So the other thing people ask is, how did we make a lot of these photos where we can see into what's going on in the food? Well, this is the machine shop. Our actual kitchen is just around the corner. And this is how we do it. We actually did cut the stuff in half. This is our wire EDM machine. It's using just a stupid amount of electric current to actually erode its way through the metal. There it is about half an hour later. So this is just, these are just some of the things we've cut in the half of the course of making this book. Now, the recipes are important too, because they make these techniques, this science, practical. So this is just some of the recipes that we actually created in our kitchen with our culinary team. Just to give you a sense. Because it still is about the cooking. It still has to be great food. So one of the questions that comes up is recipes are wonderful, the techniques are great, but how do you go beyond recipes? How do you go beyond techniques? So one of the things we wanted to create is a way to guide especially young chefs of how to do things that they have never been done before. So we created what we call parametric recipes. This is an example of one where, let's say you want to make a hot fruit jelly. Well, the table on the right, you can choose your texture. Do you want it brittle, semi-brittle? Do you want it elastic? Do you want it very chewy? Then how acidic is the fruit or vegetable? The pH of that is going to determine what blend of gums you use to get that particular texture. So using this single page here, you can create literally hundreds of potential recipes. We follow it with several example recipes that we particularly like. A hot banana gel or a hot green apple gel, each made slightly differently because of how you're trying to preserve the flavor or color, to show how to use these parametric recipes. We also provide a lot of what we call best bet tables. This is a best bet table for different sous vide cooking temperatures for example, tough poultry. And there's lots of textures possible. We try to give you suggestions for what times and temperatures will give you a particular texture, because it's entirely up to you what texture you want to create. But where do you start? We also have reference tables on how to choose, for example, the right Activa, the meat glue for the job you're doing. Or for brines or cures, what types of salts you want to use, what curing salts you use, how much should you use. So, needless to say, creating this was a tremendous amount of work. It took us nearly 5 years. And it wouldn't have been possible without my co-author. This is Nathan Mirvold. Now, not a lot of people in this world know of Nathan, at least certainly not for his passion for cooking. Nathan's mostly known better for his other job. You might be familiar with Microsoft Windows. That's actually what Nathan used to do, and he used to moonlight as a chef in the evening while doing that as his day job. When he asked me to come and help create this book, we ended up very quickly realizing we needed a bigger team. So this is Maxime Billet, my other co-author who came with me from the Fat Duck. That's actually Max creating this photo. So we did actually cook the food. These photos also wouldn't have been possible without this gentleman. This is Ryan Smith. He came on as our photo assistant, and he ended up shooting over 300,000 photos that ended up making the final 3,500 or so that are in the book. But of course, there's a much bigger team behind us. At the high water mark, we had almost 36 people working full-time on this book, including our culinary team that you see here making some spectacular messes. So, that's obviously what the book looks like. And I think, thank you. One more thing. Can we go back to the slides, please? Can we go back to the slides? And can we go back? Now let's try that again. Just one last movie for fun. This is our scrambled eggs with a NATO 308 round. So, thank you.
Thank you, Christian. Thank you.